Hey guys, welcome. Yeah, so we already talked about scalar multiplication, and that's what happens when we multiply a vector by a constant. What we want to know is how do we multiply two vectors? And it turns out that there are two different types of multiplications that could happen between two vectors. One of them is called the dot product, discussed in this video, and another one to come in a different video called the cross product. So the dot product and the cross product are the two types of multiplications that we could have between two vectors. And in this video, it's about the dot product, so let's keep it to that. Now, before you can do the dot product between two vectors, you need to make sure that the two vectors are in the same dimension. So if u is in 2 dimensions, then v also needs to be in 2 dimensions in order for us to have u dot v make sense. And here's how we define u dot v. It's pretty simple. We just multiply corresponding components and then add the results. So u dot v will be u1 times v1 plus u2 times v2. So pretty straightforward. But notice, looking here on the right side, that u1, v1, u2, and v2 are all numbers. And so their multiplication and their addition is just going to give us a number. So the dot product between two vectors returns a scalar. That is, the dot product between two vectors is not in turn a vector. It's just a constant. Yeah? Okay, cool. I'll say more about what that constant means in a different video. But yeah, the dot product between two vectors gives a scalar is the point. And of course, if our vectors are in 3D, then the dot product would be calculated very similarly. And more generally, if our vectors are in n dimension, then this is how the dot product would go. Very simple, right? Okay, cool. All right, before we wrap up, let's look at a couple of examples and then we'll say we're done. First example, let's look at two vectors in 2D. So suppose you have the vector u here and then v there. What's u dot v? Pretty straightforward. 4 times negative 3 plus 0 times 1, and therefore negative 12. Yeah, if you need to see it, here it is. Yeah, okay, cool. And so let's skip on to 3D. And we'll find something interesting here perhaps. And we do, looking at the specific two vectors that we have. So u and v here. When we do u dot v, look at the result. It's going to turn out to be equal to 0. And it turns out that there is an important consequence when the dot product between two vectors is equal to 0. And that consequence is this. When the dot product between two vectors is equal to 0, it means that the two vectors are perpendicular. We'll explain why this has got to be in a different video, which is we'll explain why the dot product between two vectors being 0 means that the two vectors are perpendicular. But for now, just take it as a fact, or draw this vector u and draw this vector v and visually convince yourself. Yeah? All right, cool. I hope you enjoyed this video and many more to come. Keep watching. Take care.